Yeah, he did chorus last year with Mr. Gagnon, and then decided he didn't want to do both this year. So.
And it is the hour. We're up, ready to rock and roll.
Got him.
Meeting of the new EL Building Committee. We bring it to order. Thank everyone for coming by again as we get closer and closer to D-Day, so to speak. Let's see, D-Day, probably not E-Day, Election Day or Vote Day, or whatever you want to call it. As we make our progress towards that, there are not a lot of changes since we last met, but an update about some of the communications and things that are going forward as we bring this project to the community through the school committee and the city council, and eventually to the straw poll, and then to the referendum for the students, for the residents to vote on and approve this project. So many of us have seen what we're designing, but the communications pieces, the pamphlets and things that are going to go out, we're going to review those tonight, and I'm going to let Katie lead us through what the latest is for our comment. So, Katie, you're on.
Thank you. So, as you know, we are contracted with Marshall Communications, and so Greg Glynn was here at one of our meetings, and Adam and I have a regular Monday, what do you call it, like quarterback spark, you know, with Greg, who kind of says, okay, what happened last week? Where are you now? What are you working on? And then you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. So it's been great. He's very good about messaging, talking us through about messaging, what we want to accomplish as we move through each phase. So he knows that we've been working hard around city council, and getting those messages to city council, working with our community. So this flyer, I hope you all got your flyers in the mail, but Roz Walton worked very hard on that flyer with a lot of revisions and so forth as we reviewed that flyer. So that went out to the community. So we're using a lot of this as our jumping off of what we share with the community. So one thing that was really important is our website. We knew our website, you know, Roz, with everything she's doing, she was trying to keep that up as well. So we asked last week to have our one of our technology coaches, if she could spend some time taking the information on what we were doing and some of the feedback about making it more user-friendly. So she's been working on this. And then Greg Grinlin, he's been looking at it, sending feedback. You know, you say they can do this, but the link doesn't go anywhere. You know, things like that. So you can see that at the top, we're gonna change this maroon to, once we get a kind of logo design. So Greg is gonna work with some of our students around a logo. He suggested one of the pictures putting up the EL Our Future is Here. So today Scott had his staff take a picture of students behind the sign so that, you know, people can make that connection. It's not just a sign, but there's our students. Keeping the picture of when we did the community, and you're featured in the picture. But, you know, making sure the social media was up front, the pictures, upcoming events. So those are the list of the meetings that we have that you've all seen in the slides. Then we have the new ELHS FAQ that Adam worked on. So Adam took this inside sheet and created questions that he could then use these as the answers. So you'll see there's many of the questions that you've heard or have been asked, and so those are the questions the community has been asking. So those are now in place. And then as we send your questions, comments, we'll add to that as those come through.
Katie, do we know how many hits we have on this? Can we count how many hits?
We can double check on that.
That would be good to know.
Yes, yep.
I had 3 today, so that matters.
Take those off because I was checking it out.
No, but a counter, right.
Good distracted.
It may do that already. If Peter were here, I'd ask Peter Robinson, but And then we are trying to get in that as it got to give a notification if it gets updated, and that's a little more work behind the scenes that is still being worked on. We have a fundraising started. I have Ray Stevens reached out to me. His mom passed away. He was a 1981 EL graduate, and his mom was a graduate as well. So he had reached out to me last week and said, I would like to do something in lieu of flowers. And he was a big science. He's a bio technology at University of Southern California. And so he's very interested in science. So I believe these funds that he's raising will be for the science department. So I've asked him if he would write a little paragraph for this so that when people, well, why is this up here? Who is this person and connected? So I'm allowing him to do a little bit about that. But if you looked at the Sun Journal on Saturday under her obituary, it did say to go to this link. And so we are able to track through our PayPal system who, where money is being donated to. So as we keep fleshing this out, that will obviously increase. So part of the fundraising plan, as we've been working on it, really waiting for a consensus on what this project's going to be. So, asking for large gifts, we really need to have that vision for what would inspire community members to step up. So we are already cultivating that, but we have started this section of the website. Holly?
Hey, Katie, this may seem like a small thing, but is there a process to do a thank you note or letter to anybody who contributes, or some kind of thank you
I'd have to
response?
see what comes up for information,
Okay.
so that we could, like you said, an automatic thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Can you make note of that, Adam, Stephanie? Okay. So we will, and we also want to write more around, I think, well, let's see if I click on it. Yeah, so we wrote a little thing here, fundraising will kick off following community approval of the project in June. The local fundraising campaign would reduce the amount of increase in taxes in the new ELHS project. The campaign goal is to raise $3 to $5 million. It will provide an opportunity for residents, alumni, and businesses to donate funds for naming rights, including stadium, performing arts, fields, and facilities. So we gave a little summary there, and then we have the first fund that's been identified, which we'll add to. And then the other thing Adam's going to check in is with local bank to see if there's a way with the PayPal right now. People do get charged using PayPal. So we want to work out, is there a way we can do it to mitigate that? So Adam, where are you?
Just to clarify, they don't get charged, but PayPal takes a cut of the
okay,
donation.
PayPal, sorry.
Percentage, Adam?
A percentage, it's about 3%. So I haven't gotten anywhere with that yet, but I'm going to
So
be
that's on a
looking into
to-do
it.
list, right?
Yes,
That's
it's on the to-do list
Yeah.
to see if there's a better option.
Correct.
That was my question. Can we use a credit card or something like that instead?
People can
And in
use a
addition-
credit card through the PayPal, but there's any number of ways to collect money, and so we just have to decide which one works the best for what we're
A
trying to
good
do.
old-fashioned check is always nice.
Good
A lot of
old-fashioned
people
check
don't
works,
use
but,
checks. Yeah.
right.
I know.
For those
Because-
who like to do that, yes, there's no middleman, there's no fee, so
And it can
those
be
work
big.
very well.
Big.
Right.
That's right. So that's a work in progress. I wanted you to be aware of that. So we're working on, and that's a work in progress. The other thing is tonight, thank you so much for everybody being really flexible about meeting at 5:30. There is an all-course event. John's children are in it. So we want to make sure he gets there. Bill Buzza, and Darren, I think we're all going to head up there. I will say a few opening words about the project to the families, focusing on probably asking how many of you are fourth grade parents, how many of you fifth grade parents, those type of things, getting them excited. We have a handout, so even though they just received a mailing, we have, and I'll pass this around, we have this being handed to them as they leave the event. We also will be having, so you can take that. I will wait till after the meeting and tell them I'm standing by the chart if they have any questions, to show them that. We also have 5 businesses who have agreed to take a poster board to display in their businesses prior to the straw poll. It has pictures, it has some little blurbs, and it has a reminder about the straw poll vote. So trying to get that out in the community. And then we're also working on a standard poster. So when we make it through straw poll on our way to the referendum, there'll be a standard poster that we can hang up all around the community for the referendum. So I just want you to know there's a lot of work being done in order to get the positive vote. The other thing is City Council, which is what we're going to talk to. Tom has been out of town on business, so I updated him today, so I don't think he minds if I keep talking.
Keep right on going.
Okay. So the other thing is, and I want to thank Holly and David Young, you did an excellent job last night talking to the City Council. You're a huge advocate, and you have a real good understanding of the importance of the project, so I appreciate your words of support. I think we do have votes for the up to 15 million. So just so everybody hears on the same page, is in the wording on the referendum is an up to number, not to exceed a certain number. So we've been talking to Mark and Lisa on how to best approach getting that to the up to 15 million on the referendum question. So you know that we're at 16.4 million, so we're talking about how to get it so that the bond will be up to 15 million. Now what we do know is we can identify other funding sources. So one of the funding sources, Adam Hansen and I have been talking a lot about our capital improvement funds, and I did talk to the City Council about that yesterday evening. So what we've talked about is earmarking capital improvement dollars, some that we already have that have not been allocated to a project. So, you know, each year we get an allocation based on what we have for a approximation of what like a roofing. So we work with Mel Cole, who works with us and says, okay, a roofing, a couple of bids, it might come in at this amount. So we put that in our capital improvement that it's going to be X dollars. So of course then the project goes out to bid, and it's often can be below the amount that we set aside. So that has happened. We're using some of those undesignated allocated funds for the Park Avenue project. If you don't know, we're adding the 2 classrooms to Park Avenue this summer. Well, we also have $600,000 where 200 of that was what we put in CIP for the ELHS project last year. So we're saying that we will allocate $1 million towards this project of our capital fund. So we already have 600,000, and then we will earmark each year to get to the 1 million. So on the referendum question, it will say the total amount, which will be, and we'll talk about the next part because it will be a different amount, and then we'll say $1 million from our capital improvement funds will be towards the project, okay? So in order to get to the 15 million, we need more than that. So we talked about taking off the second artificial turf field. That would lower it by about $620,000, with the anticipation, though, that we would have it, but it would come through the contingency funds for construction if there's money there. Whatever the gap is between the money there and the cost of the artificial turf field would be paid through the fundraising efforts.
Yeah.
Okay?
And like grants and stuff.
Grants, exactly. Yeah, like as Sue said, grants, and Brandy nodded. So that's something, we know that the artificial turf is going to be secondary to the building in the timeline of the project. So it makes most sense then, instead of saying, well, what about the auditorium? Well, the auditorium has to be set, right? You're not going to later say, well, oh, we raised enough for the 200 seats. Well, it's too late now. So we thought that item would be comfortable enough to say, you know, once the students move, what do we have for contingency fund? What have we raised for fundraising? What have we gotten for grants? Things like that that can feed into that. So that's going to come off that 16.4 million, not the $1 million for the capital improvement. So I know you all can explain that better. But that's what knowing that we have council support, enough votes to go up to 15 million, that's the target.
So this brings, if you took off the second turf surface, because you're keeping the field, and you use the $1 million from the CIP fund, that actually takes you under 15 million.
Correct.
I know you're going to say up to 15 on the bond, but I think to show the council and other people that you're even working a little bit harder, I also think the turf field is a really good one because you can see it, you can understand it, you can feel it.
Correct.
People can feel, justified is not really the right word, but good about, yes, this is something that we had trouble with, they listened to us, we addressed it, and also you knowing that this can be something that can be done in the future.
Correct.
Which is another thing people are saying, well, do these things that you can do in the future, and I think this is a really, a very smart way to roll this out and to pay for it.
Okay, good. That's the feedback we're looking for. So do you want to show us how that plays out?
We'll bring that up. Are there any questions, though, about anything that's transpired, or everyone understands, I guess, what we're talking about? We'll go through it on the budget worksheet so it's really clear. But we just want to make sure that if there are any questions, people who may have not been privy to some of the city council or joint school board city councils, if there's any questions. You all look like you're in the know, so thumbs up from Scott. All right.
Is that going to get switched over? Lisa, are you going to try to get on? I think that's going to switch from
Apple TV to the
Apple TV to
yeah.
Light Show.
I knew when you saw me get up, you.
Katie, while we're getting this up, when you talk about $1 million from the CIP, are you going to break that out very specifically, where that is going to come from, or?
Well, what we talked about is where the auditorium is the most expensive. You don't have to say that in the referendum.
Yeah,
You just
I'm
say,
just curious.
Exactly. You don't need to say that. We talked about where the auditorium is the highest price, that you could say $1 million will be allocated to the auditorium, but it's not necessary in the question. It's how do we arrive to the 15 million? We arrive at the 15 million using $1 million of the capital improvement.
I'm just curious, so if you said $1 million on the CIP, are you going to say, here are the things that are in the CIP that we are not, that we're?
We talked about, no, but we talked about that too.
I just want to be
I told them,
prepared.
use the $1 million the way you think is best to use
Okay,
it.
great.
And then let us know. Yeah.
And in some ways, it's simply a matter of how we shift it. Of course, we have the problems with the.
Oh, it has to do,
Yeah.
right.
Don't touch
All right.
it.
Well, we're gonna.
Has to
Yeah.
do with the
Again,
resolution.
But the CIP that we submit to the city council is going to not say that on it, right? We're just submitting $1 million less, right?
Well,
What are we doing
the
there?
CIP request that we'll give to city council will have 200,000 in
Right.
it, earmarked for the new school for next year and the following year.
Okay.
We already earmarked 200 this past year.
So, but we're not, what essentially is we're not asking for another $1 million from
No.
the CIP,
No.
right?
No, no.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're not.
Bonnie, bring the mic.
We're not asking for another $1 million. We're not asking for 2.5 million. We're only asking for 1.5, say.
It's
Yes.
within the CIP request that we would put forward for our normal request to the council, we will hold 200,000 of that.
Right. Got
to
that.
help fund this feature.
I got
And
that.
it'll add to our surplus now that has not been expended because projects have come in under bid. Therefore, we've got an excess. We will add to that excess with CIP over the next 2-3 years and pay for that $1 million in order to keep the impact, stable. Yes, Peter?
So to clarify this a little bit more for me, and maybe for other folks, so is the CIP money coming from also the unallocated CIP funds?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
what you're doing? That's where most
That-
of it's coming from, right?
So to break it down a little bit more,
Yeah,
we put in for 200,000 for the new high school a year
Right,
ago. So
right.
we already have that allocated.
Right.
We've identified another 400,000 from prior CIP that we're going to earmark. So that gets us to 600.
that's the unallocated, that 400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that 600,000 is existing money that we already have.
right.
then we will request, as part of our upcoming CIP request, 200,000 toward the new high school.
Right.
And we'll plan to, the following year, ask again for another 200 as part of our CIP. All of that totals $1 million that will go toward the project.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So Holly, to get your point, we have to identify things, so they're going to take you through. Go.
So you'll see, so this is our project budget worksheet. This gets submitted to the Department of Education, and you'll see there's a column that says state/local. I'm not sure how the local piece of it, but it's state. That's the state column, and that's why that's 86.82%. So about 87% of the project right now is being funded by the state. The local only right now is the column that we have for local expenses. Then there's an additional column that says other funding, and that's where we have the opportunity to put in, if we're finding additional funds, and the CIP funds could be designated in that column. Right now there isn't anything in that column. So our consideration is, as we go down through right now and we go to the list of local pieces, these match what we've been talking about with both the school board and the city council. And under the audit, under the stadium, you'll see we have the, or actually separate item, I guess we'll get down to the second turf field, which is item number 8. There we go. And it shows 560,746. Remember, that's construction only, and there's an additional 22% for soft costs on top of that. So if we zero that line item out right now, because what we're saying is that we're not seeking funding for that item. What that did then to our bottom line, which will go all the way down to the, is that we're now at 15.8 million. So that's the total project. And what it does is it does several things. It shifts, the percentages right now shifted. It was about 86.82 or so. If we actually go up, it starts to shift more burden onto the state on a number of things, because so now it's 87.29. So in some ways, the state, and it goes through, and several other formulas are dependent on that percentage. And so in some ways it shifts a little more burden every time we do that over to the state. And that's for things even such as testing and things like that that are built on that percentage. So that's one item. The next thing then is, what would we shift over and fund $1 million on the CIP, the balance of which we would keep in the middle column. And so, for instance, we talked about the auditorium, right? Could be one that we do that. So, yeah, even if it's something that totals more than the million, we can split it apart so that the auditorium upgrade of 1.356, we could say in cell L, whatever that, I can't see that one, but yeah, so if we go, right here. Yep, up one, I was going to do it in that one right there. We could do it in seating, we could do it in the auditorium upgrade, but if we put the $1 million in that item, yeah, minus, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then we would say that equals that minus $1 million. Or just minus that other column. There we go. Great. And so, and I haven't what it probably did was it probably shifted more burden onto the state, but we'd probably have to reconcile that, because the state's going to say, well, just because you did that doesn't mean we should absorb even more. So it still said, yeah, you're right, good. Yeah, so that's good. Yep, that's what we want. Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
Will these be the percentages that we can quote, or you'll need to do some adjustments to make sure that?
Nothing is set in stone until we get to the final funding approval. And so right now, it's still a work in progress with the Department of Ed for a little while longer.
Okay, thank you.
So if we go down to the bottom of the totals right now, we are at 14.6 of, it looks like we're at 1.1 million. Yeah, we're gonna.
Contingency.
All right, so we'll back that out, but
So if we did 900,000.
Yeah, it would be 9.1 or 9.9, but yeah. There we go. So we're at 14, it'll show 14.7 in the local column with 990,000 in other funding sources. So the bond would be up to 15 million, and that's how we would build this budget right here. So that's one way of doing it. What we also talked about is that fundraising would potentially reduce the local share, so that's why we're saying up to the 15 million. As well as if contingencies aren't used, and right now there's about 1.4 million in local contingency. That's the piece that you folks have control over. And if that's not used during the construction project, then that becomes available for either you don't spend it, in which case you're not going to encumber that expense, or you use it to fund something that you've deferred. So that's.
I think that's an important point to clarify and emphasize to the citizens is this does not reflect any fundraising that might be done. And we do have an aggressive fundraising campaign envisioned at this point in time. So you cannot go to referendum and say, oh, we're going to raise X number of dollars and that'll bring it down here. You can only go to referendum with known dollars, so to speak, committed dollars. So we're asking the city council to approve up to the 15 million. Doesn't mean we will end up using it all, but we need that approval. And in order to reach that number, the city council said, we're saying we're gonna take CIP money that is available, known money, again, that is committed to this project in order to bring us below that $15 million figure. That will subsequently get impacted by any fundraising that we do. So that we are going to aggressively look for that fundraising. It will impact the total cost to the taxpayer of this project. And it's an important point for us to remember that 15 million is what the top is that we're asking the city to authorize. It is not where we expect to end up.
Now, I know, just because I know it was asked, Adam, do you have what the mill rate would adjust to? Because I think that's Holly's point is, we've been saying right now, the state's doing 87%, the community's doing 13%. Now it's gone from 87% to the taxes being 11%, to the local being 2%, or whatever it is. So I think that's what you were asking, Holly. So yes. So what do we have in a shift in the mill rate from the flyer?
So I'll go through the 3 year. We had talked about what would the first 3 years look like. So I'll give the updated numbers for that based on 15. Year one would be an increase of 27 cents or estimated $40 on a $150,000 home. In year two, when the first principal payment hits, it's an increase of 64 cents on the mill rate or $96 in taxes. And then year three, the bond payment, because every year the payment goes down slightly, it goes to 63 cents or $94. Now in year three, the school goes online and we add our estimated increase in operating costs, which is the same number we've been saying of 21 cents or $31. So if you add together the bond payment and the operating costs in the year the school opens, you're at 84 cents or $125.
On 150.
Right, which is down from the initial number that was out there was 90 cents or $135.
All right, good.
Yeah, any questions on that?
I have a question. For the maintenance fees for the first year that the school opens, does that include also the maintenance for the fields that won't be open that first year?
Right.
Does it include that? Because we're saying that the fields would be available like 18 months after.
That number does not include specifically the fields, no. It includes custodial staff, supplies, and utilities.
So we're looking at potentially another increase once.
So I guess I'd have to ask Mark and Lisa if anything was factored into that first year number for fields.
We wouldn't necessarily see an increase in maintenance costs,
Right.
Billy, because we're maintaining fields all over the city already, so I'm not sure there would be an impact in terms of an increase for maintenance costs, and eventually I think we're hoping it would be a decrease, aren't we, Billy?
You need to come to the mic, Billy.
Because there are people out there. Come to a mic just to share with that. Share us.
I'm not sure if there's going to actually be an increase, but we've talked about where the city already has a turf field, and we're going to have at least one turf field, that we'd have some shared costs in there with machinery and stuff like that. So it's hard to say what the increase would actually be, if there is one. So it's, but I don't believe it's going to be significant.
I don't believe it would do much to that if it is anything. We're not talking something that would substantially increase those numbers.
Okay.
What's hard with operational is you're going based on what you think will occur.
Right.
Right, so that's what this whole thing, you know, just like the mill rate is based on current evaluation, we don't know, will there be a shift in evaluation? So,
So
Andy?
can we also factor in the projected return on investment for the auditorium? Because eventually that's going to be paying for itself. So yes, it's going to be in our operating costs for the first few years, but within 5 projected, it should be off. So can we actually factor that in as well? I think that would be helpful for people to see.
Yeah, we could work on
I don't
that.
believe we're anticipating that happening in the first 2 years, which is where we're projecting out at this point in time. But certainly the history of Westbrook has indicated that it will carry itself years 3, 4, and 5 after that, so that we are hopeful.
The newspaper is running, I don't mean to cut you off. The Sun Journal is doing a major story on Sunday. I think they've reached out to Bill Buzza. He just arrived. They will be doing what sounds like a very positive story about the 1,200-seat auditorium. They'll be reporting out Westbrook and what Westbrook has had for revenue. So I think we can build on their research to say, well, if they did it for this amount, we can anticipate, like you said, the offset of how much. I mean, we know how much they've made in revenue, so we could project that out. So the Sun Journal is doing a major story supporting, it sounds like, the 1,200-seat auditorium. Andrew Rice is doing a research, has been talking to Bill and Westbrook about what they did.
The other thing I wanted to add is, with the state paying half the geothermal, how much would we be saving in fuel costs every year? Because that's going to be off of our operating budget. So if we didn't do that, what would be our projected operating cost versus if we did have geothermal?
Yeah, we presented that at the city council meeting last week, and it's an increase of 87 cents per square foot to not do the geothermal and do air conditioning.
And it's no longer half the geothermal the state is covering. It's 3/4 or more?
Yeah, the way they did it, they came back, I think most people are familiar with that conversation, but the way the state funds it, they will fund half of air conditioning and geothermal together. And we were just counting on them to pay only the incremental cost for the geothermal. So the way that works is that if we take both the AC and the geothermal, then they pay a significantly more of the geothermal option. So.
And there's a 1.8-year return on investment, Brandy. Yeah.
On that.
I know, yeah. You weren't here for all that excitement.
That was very good.
So Brandy,
That's why it's part of the project now.
the orange column is the newer numbers, and so you can see in the geothermal heating and cooling what the local impact would be is the 426,588.
And again, to go back and review, and they seem like small details, I just want to make sure that I have them correct. The changes in the physical plant itself are going to be, you're going to make some changes in terms of the, I can't remember, but additional aspects to the auditorium. Is that correct? Or no, it's just the field?
Do you mean in reduction?
Yeah.
No.
Just the field is the only thing that's going to change in terms of the physical plant, okay, great.
We're using an other funding source to get to the number that we feel the community is more apt to support.
Okay. Can we just put it in that column as to show the impact that would have depending on which item, whether it's auditorium or something else that those funds are used to purchase that. So that's why it's in the auditorium right now. It's just
Thank you. And in terms of having this information in a form that can be given in the packet to the city council will be there. I just know some people will be particularly interested in having these details beforehand so that we're not trying to dig into all of this, but
yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll work on how to best have that ready for Friday, because I think your packets go Friday, correct?
Actually,
Thursday.
Thursday? Okay.
So you and I, yeah, okay.
Tomorrow we
Yeah.
can work that out.
We'll work that out. Good point. Now, do you think it's more advantageous to put it under the seats or the upgrade? I mean, what do you think,
Or does
David?
it go somewhere
No.
else altogether?
Or somewhere else altogether.
You know,
Any one of
can they
these
more
categories.
understand the seats?
I think upgrade, just because you're not, seats are a very specific thing, and they say, well, how many seats is
Okay,
it that
so
you're not going to have
it's
there?
on the
Upgrades
upgrade.
can be,
And 10 or 12 seats and save some
Yeah.
money, or 100 seats.
yeah. And then people will imagine, okay, I'm going to walk in there, and they're going to be
Right.
4 rows
Okay.
of no seats.
The other thing we just talked about is we're going to have to ask city council to probably make a motion. Peter, something to add on Monday is a motion to use the CIP dollars, that the dollars will be allocated to the EL project, so that the state sees a commitment from the city council for those CIP dollars.
The CIP leftover dollars.
All dollars. We need them to, yeah, we need them to say they approve the use of capital improvement funds up to $1 million for the ELH.
Existing.
Correct. Existing and future.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll work on wording of that too, that we'll need for city council. And probably school committee tomorrow. So school committee to city council.
Right. We should
So you'll have to
information.
approve the CIP dollars. Yeah. Okay.
And
So
the-
I'll
yeah.
fill you in when we get the question.
Because he's not paying attention.
And just to break this down to a level of detail that you probably don't
That's
need,
got
but
money or maybe.
the,
Katie's got the other one.
so when we zeroed out the second turf field, what we actually will be doing is we'll still design it for artificial turf as an alternate price. So it'll still go out to bid with the contractors, and they'll price the incremental difference. And when we get to that point in the construction, that's when we look to add it back in through additional funds, so.
And these prices will hold for us? I mean, the
Yeah, so,
fields are going to be out there, so if
right,
we go out to bid.
exactly.
It'll be part of
When
the
they-
bid.
When they submit their pricing, they have to have assumed the phasing of when that is going in, and as we've talked, they can't build those until we take the school down, so it's delayed by necessity, so.
So in recapping, we've done everything except the turf field, the second turf field, and that may come later down the road. We've used our capital CIP funds that are here now, future, and future, right? Out for $1 million, right? So we've taken $1 million out of the program,
Auditorium
or what do we do?
upgrades. Yep.
Of the upgrades. We took $1 million off the upgrades, right? So really, we only took $1.5 million off, really, $1.6 million.
I guess it took it off the bond,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Bond.
the bond.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. We only took $1.6 million off the bond,
Correct.
right. And we've got the other million hanging out there for us, the CIP.
That million is
No,
again, factored into that
So the million
1.6.
six is part, the million is part of that, the CIP.
Okay.
The million six that you're talking
Okay.
about is the field and the million from CIP.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
The
not
gotcha.
an
field,
additional million.
another way to look at it, the field came off altogether. The million was just a shift from one column to the other, but
Okay.
it didn't affect the project.
Okay,
And this may be a small thing again, but I think it's important to talk about, there will be a second field.
Right.
Right.
That's a good
Correct.
point,
Just will
Mike,
not
yeah.
be
Just won't
There'll
have
be a
artificial
second turf
turf.
field, yes.
There'll be a second field, but it won't have artificial turf on it.
to start with.
The base bid will be grass to start with, and when funds become available,
Yes.
it'll get funded.
So you'll have 2 fields to work with.
That could be a really great adopt a spot to,
No, I-
go back to a previous meeting.
No,
Confusing.
no,
when-
I think the vision
By the square
is to
foot.
have 2 artificial turf fields.
Oh, so I just.
Right, but in this proposal,
And this
that we'll be looking-
proposal to the state, I think will be, to be totally transparent, to the state application, it will show that their artificial turf is not there. However, I think in their presentation, they will note in there that the community is looking to support a second artificial turf through fundraising contingency fund, so that the state knows that we will go out to bid probably for an artificial turf. But it's not accounted here. So I don't want to say to the community, we're not doing the second artificial turf. We have every intention to do the second artificial turf if the contingency funds are there and if the fundraising funds there. So I think, you know, we hope to open with 2 artificial turf. That's what I'm saying.
I think that's really good information. It might be
Right.
in the notes P column as you're going through.
That's a good idea.
There might be some notes in there just to
And notes
clarify.
under the turf, that it came out only because of funding source. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Holly.
I feel like a lot of the conversations at some of the joint meetings that were held were really getting into some of those, like, people were going off, like, way off. Like, well, what if we fundraise for this, fundraise for that? And I think that, what you just said, is bringing, it shows we're bringing some of your thoughts and, okay, we'll pull this off and then we'll fundraise for it down the line. So I feel like that will be well received.
Yeah.
I agree.
moving
Responding to their suggestions, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to check in with everybody? Leonard, how are you feeling?
Feel great. David?
Scott?
Scott doesn't have a vote.
Well, he has feelings.
He can feel.
His feelings.
Peter.
Peter?
There are some feelings in here.
There are feelings.
How are you doing,
Deep
Scott?
feelings.
Thumbs up, yes.
Peter?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Brandy?
Brandy?
Holly? Sue?
I think it's gonna be
John?
John?
It's good.
Adam?
And Beth?
Brilliant.
Beth?
Art?
I can't think of it. Art, yeah. Art?
Ralph?
Ralph? Ralph, how are you feeling? Good. We on the right track? Ralph, are we on the right track? Says I'm just listening. Good. Okay.
All right, I guess the update on next steps. We have tomorrow night another workshop with the school committee.
Not workshop, regular meeting for
Regular
the
meeting,
vote.
okay. Oh, very good.
We have the vote
We've had
tomorrow
enough Wednesday, I guess we're done our Wednesday workshops
Yes.
for a little while, so.
You're not coming tomorrow night?
Oh, well, no.
Well, it's
we're
not,
gonna
it's not a
come,
workshop.
But it's not a
but we-
workshop.
We will be here
Oh, yeah,
tomorrow
we
night,
don't know what to
yes.
do on our Wednesday night otherwise.
They're going to review this with school committee. This is
Good.
what's happened. This is what we're asking for support, that we're going to have to add an addendum about the capital improvement dollars for tomorrow night. And, yeah, so they're pretty much informed because of the joint meeting. So I think it's just updating. What I said last night at the meeting at City Council was similar to this, so now they're going to see it coming to fruition. This is what it looks like. This is what it will mean when the voters do the June referendum, that we'll update at the straw poll. So I may say something tonight that we've already changed, shifted numbers here. So keep track of what's information, and please come out for the straw poll.
And it will be in June.
Yep, the referendum is in
Referendum
June.
in
Yes.
I'm sorry, not the straw vote, but the
The
referendum will be in
referendum
June.
is in June, yeah.
So then, in our
Straw
next
poll's
meeting.
next week.
Yeah, straw polls next week. Our next meeting with DOE is Monday, and then Monday evening, we have the city council, so. And then straw poll.
And are we with the city council too? On Monday when they're here?
You all are invited to be in the audience. It's a special meeting for the
City council.
city council. I suggest everyone should be there
on Monday?
on Monday, yes.
Is that the only thing on the agenda?
Yes.
Are you thinking 7 o'clock? Is it a 7?
Might be earlier. It's going to be a short meeting, I think.
Don't say that.
Oh, I know.
Right now I have it for 7, right now I have it for 7 o'clock. So if it's, yeah,
I'll let you know.
if it changes, I just need to make sure we get out. I'll tell people to check
Yeah.
the city website for time, exact time. Because you may push it to 6, I know what you're saying.
Is it possible, and we've asked this question before, is it possible to, this is important to the community, and the community, probably everybody in the community goes by the library at some point during their day, their week. On it, I think it would be appropriate if we asked the library to do the sign
The
out
straw
front.
poll. Yeah, we
The
can do
sign
that.
out front.
Yeah.
On it,
I can reach out to Mamie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good
She
thought.
won't mind, but the straw poll date, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And be sure that it says ELHS.
Time, ELHS gym. Scott's setting up for over 100 people, so we hope there's standing room only
In the gym?
in the gym.
We,
Have the straw poll on it.
We'll do that as well.
She doesn't have the straw poll?
Oh, yeah, it does. It doesn't call
13.
it
Oh,
that.
why did
Yeah.
she, oh,
public hearing,
probably
yeah, that's,
say
yeah,
Public hearing.
Straw
Public
poll.
hearing, it just
Yeah.
doesn't say straw
Yeah, that's
poll,
fine.
but it's
Yep.
public hearing.
yeah.
I'm surprised, okay.
I don't know
I didn't pick
if
up on
the
that.
state actually calls it a straw poll or not, but maybe they do.
It's technically a public hearing,
Yeah.
but they refer to it as the straw poll, but for consistency, you don't want to confuse people.
I'll tell people the public hearing is a straw poll tonight. I didn't even pick up on that. You look at it,
The format for that will be questions and answers for the first
Yeah, so,
half hour, is what you
in
plan?
fact, what we'll do is,
Presentation.
next Tuesday, when we all get together again, we'll go through the presentation, and it's just gonna be information about the design and about the project itself, and a little bit about the budget. And then, we will then open it up for questions, and then at a certain point, we will ask for a vote. So,
If people are going to vote, why don't you do what you've done there on the screen, just public hearing / straw poll on this notification and
on what notification?
On
Well,
What you
this is
passed
going
out.
out tonight. I
Going
either
out
do it
tonight?
tonight, or I don't hand these out. So
Let's
it's whatever
correct it and do it right, and don't hand them out.
Well, no, it's an opportunity to get it out.
Such
The
a
only
big
thing,
audience.
there's no loss, hand it out. There's no loss, then you're gonna come back with more information about this straw poll as well. But you use this opportunity to get the word out.
well, in all future.
Right.
No, Peter,
Notifications.
it was an
Yeah.
error.
No, I'm fine with it, but I just.
No, in all futures, I don't know what more we're going to send out before next
Yeah.
Thursday, but
Any notifications, like what
yeah,
was
this
done at
was,
the library, or,
it was totally overlooked.
there's a lot going on, Katie, it's all right, but
No, I'm saying it should have said that.
yeah,
It's a good point.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
It wasn't done intentionally, it was done unintentionally.
very good. And then after that, then we go through the process with the state to submit for the concept approval, concept design approval. And then when we get that, then we all continue to promote the project for referendum, so. So, and then again, that's when we'll find something else to do with our Wednesday nights.
There you go.
We'll find something, exactly. So,
Good.
any other thoughts or questions before we,
Nice job.
so,
Yeah.
Everybody did.
long way from
Everyone.
where we started, so.
That's right.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Good journey.
Good journey, a lot of good work. Peter, anything?
No, this is good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, all right.
Thanks,
Hi,
everyone.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Wash fingers, move us forward.
We're still on. Still on air. Mike's still live.
Yep, there's-
There, we're off.